Margaret Reynolds had always been a quiet woman. Living alone in a small, weathered house on the outskirts of her town, she moved through life almost invisibly. At 72, the world seemed to have passed her by, leaving her with memories of a life that once promised more. She had lost her husband decades ago, and her children had moved far away, wrapped up in their own lives. Yet, despite the loneliness, Margaret never complained. She carried a heavy burden quietly, a silent struggle she refused to reveal. For years, Margaret's health had been declining, but she hid it from everyone. The small aches in her joints, the fatigue that made climbing stairs a challenge, even the sleepless nights, she endured them all in silence. Her neighbors assumed she was simply frail, as most elderly people are, but the truth was more profound. Margaret had lived through a series of hardships. Losing loved ones, financial instability, and the gnawing weight of regret over the dreams she never pursued. Each morning, she would sit by her window, staring at the empty street below, recalling the life she might have had. She had always wanted to paint, to travel, to write stories that could touch hearts, but the demands of survival, of raising a family, had drowned those dreams. She believed her chance was gone. "It's too late for me," she whispered to herself, a mantra repeated in solitude. Yet, there was an unspoken resilience in Margaret's heart. Something inside her refused to fully accept that her life was over, that her story had ended. One afternoon, while tending to her neglected garden, she found an old journal buried under a pile of leaves. It was a journal she had kept as a young woman, full of ideas, sketches, and unfinished stories. As she turned the fragile pages, a wave of emotion swept over her. She realized that the woman she had once been, the dreamer, still existed inside her. Margaret felt a spark of something long dormant, hope. Margaret's discovery of the journal became a turning point. She began to take small steps toward reclaiming her lost passions. Each day, she set aside time to sketch the flowers in her garden or to write short reflections about her life. It started as a private ritual, a silent rebellion against the years she had allowed to slip away unnoticed. The simple act of creating reminded her that she was still alive, still capable of growth, still worthy of dreams. Her health challenges remained, but Margaret found that immersing herself in her passions gave her a newfound energy. She sought out online communities of artists and writers, connecting with people who shared her interests. At first, she was hesitant, afraid of judgment or ridicule, but she quickly discovered that age was no barrier to creativity. In fact, her life experiences gave her a perspective that younger artists could not replicate. Her stories carried the weight of real struggle, and her sketches reflected a depth of emotion born from decades of quiet observation. One day, she mustered the courage to submit a short story to a local literary magazine. Weeks later, she received a letter in the mail. Her story had been accepted. Margaret felt a rush of emotions, pride, disbelief, joy, all mingling together. For the first time in years, she realized that her life could still hold surprises. Her silent struggle, the years of endurance and patience, had not been wasted. Instead, they had prepared her for this moment, this chance to share her inner world with others. Word of her achievements began to spread slowly. Neighbors who once overlooked her stopped by to compliment her work, curious about the energy that seemed to radiate from her now. Margaret began teaching art classes to other seniors, many of whom had also abandoned their dreams. She became a source of inspiration, quietly proving that life does not end when youth fades, that reinvention is possible at any stage. A life transformed. Margaret's life had transformed in ways she never imagined. From a quiet, invisible woman, she became a mentor, a storyteller, and a symbol of resilience. Her garden, once neglected, now bloomed with vibrant colors, mirroring the renewed vitality in her life. She traveled to nearby towns to give talks and workshops, sharing her experiences and encouraging others to pursue long-forgotten dreams. The same hands that once trembled with age now created art with precision and passion. Her relationship with her family also deepened. Her children, witnessing the joy and fulfillment she had discovered, rekindled their bonds with her. Weekend visits became filled with laughter, shared meals, and long conversations about the stories she wrote and the sketches she painted. Margaret realized that the silent struggle she had carried for so long had not isolated her. It had prepared her to appreciate connection, to embrace the fullness of life. But beyond recognition and familial reconnection, Margaret's greatest triumph was internal. She had learned that courage does not always roar. Sometimes, it is the quiet voice at the end of the day that says, "I will try again tomorrow." Her journey from silent suffering to empowered creativity became a testament to the human spirit's capacity for resilience. She no longer measured her worth by age, health, or past regrets. Instead, she measured it by the joy she could bring to herself and others. In her final years, Margaret often reflected on her life with gratitude. The silent struggle that had once seemed like a curse had become the crucible in which her true self was forged. She had learned to embrace vulnerability, to transform pain into purpose, and to inspire others along the way. When asked about her journey, she would smile gently and say, "It's never too late to start living." Margaret Reynolds' story spread far beyond her small town, touching the lives of countless individuals who had also silenced theirs.